Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well today. So for today's video, my goal is to share with you 5 mistakes I made when I started the hobby, and to really talk about like 5 categories of mistakes in an effort to help any new person who might come across this video to not make those mistakes, to avoid some of those mistakes, or at least consider my opinions and my experience and make a better decision for themselves. And I would encourage, in the comment section on this video for people, there are a lot of people who I know watch this channel who are, really experienced, have been doing this for a long time, and it'd be really interesting to hear, if they have anything to add in terms of mistakes or stories, if you can share stories of purchases you really regret and those sorts of things. Obviously, a lot of purchases that are probably really poor have turned out to be decent because of how large the market is, and how much the market has gone up in value now. But at the time, if you had a really poor purchase or something that you did that didn't make a lot of sense, and sort of explain why, that would be, I think, really helpful for people watching this video to be able to read those comments. So the first category of mistake that I made was I bought bulk. I bought some lots when I first started, particularly one lot that had a lot of vintage bulk with it. And I bought it because I wanted to build sets. I wanted to build out a binder collection, and so I bought this huge bulk lot thinking that it would help me build out that binder collection really well. And so, it wasn't a complete loss because I was able to build some of my binder collection from that. But I bought way more bulk than I needed. And I hate having this bulk. I still have this bulk around. At some point maybe I'll turn it into lots and sell it. I've given a lot of it away, honestly, for free to people, kids and things like that who really like to see the vintage cards. But a lot of these cards are in very poor condition, and I would never sell anything that wasn't me personally. I would never sell anything that isn't like near mint to mint, just unless it's a really chase card. I would never sell just a non-hollow, common, uncommon in particular, but even rare, card from Wizards of the Coast that I have lots of them. That's just me personally. And so the mistake that I made there was in the beginning, I felt like, it would be cool to own a lot of cards. And it felt like I wanted to have like a really big collection. I wanted to be really be successful. And I misunderstood. And over time, I think I realized that what made me feel good, or made me feel like I really loved my collection, and made me what I really wanted to enjoy the cards, was looking for more of the rarer, scarcer chase cards in high grade. That's what, for me, I got more pleasure from it, and also it reduced the amount of bulk and the amount of cards that I had to lug around and carry around. And I feel like I'm still paying for that early mistake now with these huge 10,000 card boxes that I have now. And with that first category, I also want to talk about the other mistake I made within that sort of bulk, is buying damaged cards. I really don't like, and other people can have different opinions, but I sort of found out that I really don't like damaged cards. They irritate me, they bother me. I think that really high level chase cards and those sorts of things, I think that I feel okay about in damaged condition, but I was actually buying a lot of like modern cards too when I first started, because I really liked the modern. I was getting into the modern and kind of rediscovering that, and so I bought a lot of large modern lots, because I was like, I can get these much cheaper than buying the individual cards. But the reality is, a lot of those lots were filled with a lot of damaged cards that I still have and have kind of been throwing out or trying to replace with better cards over time. So it ended up being kind of a waste of money, and more importantly, sort of a waste of time, and just a learning experience of what I like, what makes me happy, and the importance of condition to me. And everyone out there is going to have their own opinion. Some people don't mind having the damaged cards, but I did. The next mistake I made was I bought one lot in particular that I'm always going to remember. I bought this sort of like buying like a staged or a misleading lot, okay? And I bought this lot that said things like, lots, graded cards involved. I didn't really know what graded cards were that much. I was sort of like, I didn't own any PSA cards at this time when I bought this lot. And so I was like really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like I really want to get my first PSA card. And the lot said that it had graded cards. It said that it had, what else did it say? It said it had, a lot of Charizards. But the pictures were very, and it said it had thousands of cards and including holos, okay? And so the pictures were very sort of far away from the cards. And the pictures were not very good condition. The lighting wasn't that great. And the graded cards were sort of like hidden a little bit from view, even though like I saw them, so I couldn't see all of them. And rather than taking the time to ask the guy like what was in this lot, which I would always do now, I think at the time I felt maybe a little bit uncomfortable doing that. Like I didn't want to bother someone, or I felt like the price was good enough that I was just sort of going to take a chance on it. That was my feeling. And so I ended up buying the lot, and the cards that were in the cases, first of all, they were like not PSA cases. I ended up finding out they were like GMA, like some cases, and the cards within the cases, even though it would say like a GMA 10, were in very, very poor condition and had been like rattling around in these loose cases. So that was very upsetting. Also, one card that I thought was in English ended up being in German because I couldn't see. And that was one of the most expensive cards in the whole, so I think I bought the lot for maybe $300. And I think that, at the time, the lot was probably worth like $100 or so, maybe $150, maybe $200 if I pieced it apart, but a lot of work and just like a terrible, terrible buy. And so I guess what I learned from that is take your time, be patient. Don't be lazy, don't reach out to people if you get this instinct like something may not be right, don't ever buy it. Like that's just my feeling. Like don't take that risk. I'm pretty conservative, but as a person in general, but just like don't take that risk. I would argue you should write to the person and see what's up. And if they're a very genuine seller and they're not trying to hide something from you, they'll very likely respond and give you more pictures or talk to you more about the cards. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is the next category of mistakes I made. So once I got more experienced after I made those kind of first mistakes, then I started learning about like what cards I really wanted, and I started wanting to get graded cards. But I had like a bit of like an impatience and a bit of like, oh my gosh, the prices are going to go up, and so I need to buy these things like right away. And so I made luckily I only did this a couple of times, but I made a couple mistakes where I actually did some buy it nows at a price where later I was then able to get the card in auction for cheaper. And so I ended up paying a little bit over what I would have had to because I really wanted the card then, and because I didn't understand I didn't watch the market long enough to understand how frequently those cards come up. Now we might be in a totally different marketplace now than we were back then, and so the solution to that is knowledge, is research. It's seeing how much these cards do come up on eBay, knowing if I don't buy this one, am I going to have a chance to buy it in the future? That sort of thing, and there's a lot up in the air right now, so that one's a bit of a difficult one right now. But I guess the solution to that is knowledge, experience, practice, and patience. And why I suggested in my beginner video, just getting back into the hobby now, is that you don't rush into buying. You take your time and you figure out what's going on. You watch a lot of different channels. You get a sense of like what the community is talking about before you just jump in. The next one. So once I started getting even more, more time had gone by, I started getting interested in grading my own cards and buying raw cards and sending them in. And the next mistake I made, interestingly, was I was actually too careful with my grading. Other people are not nearly careful enough. And so I think that taking the time to understand, like, what is a 10, what is a 9, what is an 8, when I first started grading, I was so nervous to lose money on it, and this is just my personality. I was so nervous to send cards in that weren't going to get 10s or at the very least 9s, that I only ever sent in cards, even cards that in an 8 would have been, fine, would have been valuable. I was really only sending in cards that were 10s. And so over time, once I sent in my first submission and I got back all my grades and I had like 90% 10s and like a couple 9s, in it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, grading isn't quite as strict as I thought. I had this idea that anything at all off from it, like the slightest centering offness, the slightest bit of white, the slightest bit of scratch, like anything would take it down from that 10. And the reality is that that definitely can be true, and 10s are difficult to get, but I have plenty of 10s that have tiny flaws, and 9s can have, I've seen 1, 2, even 3 tiny flaws. And so learning how grading can be a little bit loose, and learning which cards to grade, which cards not to grade over time, helped me. And so I didn't lose too much money over that. I just lost time because I then sent those cards later on, once I figured those things out. But really, when you start sending grading, really taking the time to understand the grading principles, because you can lose more dangerously, I think, is doing it the other way. Just not careful enough. And I think I'm seeing lots of people now in different streams and other places send in cards that that you're actually you're going to probably lose money on the grading. You're making it less valuable. And some of those people are sending in because they really like the card and they want it encapsulated and they want it for themselves, which makes, all the power to you. But I hear other people talking about it's like, financially, should I grade this card? Should I not grade this card? And that just comes from experience and doing your own research and looking at, sold listings, eBay sold listings, PokemonPrice.com, looking at the sold listings there, and understanding the cost of grading and understanding the real cost of grading. Also the cost of, shipping, the card back and forth and those sorts of things, because those prices can really add up. All right. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about today is spending too much on storage supplies. And I actually spent a lot of money on storage supplies when I started, in part because I didn't really know. Some of it I think was unavoidable because I didn't really know how much I was going to collect or what my goals were. And I probably should have set more goals and understood the amount I was going to collect, so I could have bought more supplies in bulk to save money. But even beyond that, I bought supplies just not from the best sources and not from the best places, and I overpaid for certain items that sounded good. And so maybe I should make a video pretty soon of what supplies I use, how much these things generally cost. We'll see. I might make that video or talk a little bit about that. Because you can actually spend, when you have a huge collection like me, you can spend, thousands to tens of thousands even, depending on the way you store your collection and how beautifully you want to display it and stuff. You can spend a lot of money. And so thinking about how you're going to store your collection and preserve your cards and also enjoy your cards, because a lot of storage has to do with enjoyment too. You can store your cards in really cheap, cardboard boxes, but are you going to pull them out and enjoy them? Or do you want to have a display case, and then how do you get the right display case? Some display cases are thousands of dollars, some are not, all of that sort of stuff. But even before all that displaying stuff and higher end stuff, when you first start, just what sleeves are you going to buy? Are you going to buy the perfect fit sleeves? Do you worry the perfect fit sleeves are going to warp your cards? It's doing the research about which perfect fit sleeves people have had the best experience with, how to buy those perfect fit sleeves in enough bulk that you kind of reduce your price, all that good stuff. And so, I suggest, looking at, sometimes I found the cheapest prices to be on eBay. Sometimes I found the cheapest prices were on Amazon. A lot of the times I found the cheapest prices were on specific other websites, other, game stores, different sorts of things that were selling directly. Sometimes I found that they had the cheapest price. And so really kind of searching around and being patient. And then also your binders, which binder, knowing which binder you actually like. I bought a lot of binders that I did end up, I like that sort of like fake leather feel on my binders, and I bought binders that didn't have that, and I don't enjoy holding those binders as much, and so I feel like I sort of wasted money on those because I didn't realize, and I bought a lot of those types of binders, for example. So buying, a good thing you could do is buy one kind of leather binder, fake leather binder, one non-fake leather binder, see which ones you like, play with different things, and then kind of once you figure that out, maybe do like a bulk purchase of, 10, 15 binders if your plan is to build out that many binder. If you plan on building that big of a binder collection, which was my plan, I wanted to build every set, in a binder. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. That's the end of the video today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. I hope this has been helpful to you if you are sort of a new person in the hobby, and if you are more experienced in the person in the hobby. I hope you can leave a comment and try and help our newer friends. Okay. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll make another video for you all again soon. All right. Take care.